y'all! Welcome back to episode 2 of these long-form YouTube videos from Support the Spectrum. Today, we are talking about my second video I ever made online. And I'm also really sorry if I am just a floating head in this video. I'm actually not sure if the black blends in with my background. My background is also black. But if I am a floating head, that's kind of funny. But also, I understand visually if that is just not it and you wanted to click away. Also, I understand if the content of this video is just like not your vibe, because my second video that I ever made online was promo, self-promo, product promotion, capitalism, which by the way, I'm joking, because I made virtually no money off of these products, but the only reason I am selling them is because I know that they work. And we're going to talk about my play-based interactive treatment materials that I have been selling since I worked at the school. The first thing I want to talk about is how these treatment materials are books. They are books filled with short, common phrases, potential gestalt phrases, play-based phrases. And the reason that I made them this way is because I had this mission in my third year working at the school as an autism support speech language pathologist that I was gonna make literacy my top priority. And there are a few reasons for this. There is so much research to support that literacy is a foundation, a building block of language acquisition and language learning. And up until that point, I was doing a lot of push-in therapy in the activities that were already taking place in the classroom. And I kind of wanted to flip that all around and focus in on the individual student's literacy journey. And then it was, okay, well, how do I get them involved? How do I give them the intrinsic motivation to want to sit down with a book? Well, you have to make it play-based. Again, there is so much research to suggest that play-based therapy and play-based activities grab the attention of language learners way more than any structured activities do. You want them to have intrinsic motivation and personal buy-in, so you want to make it fun. I'm always going to leave the research that my claims in these videos are based off of in the description below, so please check that out. But yes, there's plenty of research to suggest that learning, any kind of learning, actually takes less trials, takes less attempts at teaching when you make it fun, when you make it interesting for the learner. So that was in my mind. I'm sitting there as my third year being a professional speech therapist, saying, what am I going to do this year that's going to be different? And I decided literacy was my number one priority. Number two was making it as fun as possible and getting as much buy-in from my students as possible. And number three was to make it interactive and to make it easier on myself. It was going to be interactive and was also going to include group activities so that it can easily transition from something that student is familiar with working one-on-one with me, and then also familiar with working with their peers on. So let me read the description that I wrote to market these products. I said, this series of books are interactive, multisensory, play-based experiences. They are designed with neurodiverse learners in mind, using clear images, plain backgrounds, and short phrases to promote receptive understanding. So, that is a huge claim, right? Why would I make those choices in designing the books this way? Well, there's a lot of research to suggest that autistic children, autistic people, and neurodivergent people have atypical processing profiles, meaning that the speed in which they can process input, whether that's visual, auditory, tactile even, can sometimes look different than our neurotypical peers. So I thought it was definitely a priority to make sure that the images in the books use very simple backgrounds so it's clear as day what they are supposed to be visually attending to. Okay? And then when you present the information as you're on one page of the book, you really take your time with that one page. You make sure that that person is attentive, interested, and has enough processing time to receptively receive that input. So that's a priority. If you were to ever use these materials, definitely make sure you're taking your time with each page. And I try to make that as easy as possible because each page has an activity that goes with it, right? We'll talk more about that soon. Clear images, plain backgrounds, and short phrases. So this ended up really working out for me because I created these books at a time when I had heard about Gestalt language processing, but I wasn't 100% clear on what it was exactly. And just so happened that this book included a lot of potential Gestalt phrases, and I was repeating these play sequences many times when working with the student. So the repetition and the continuity of using these same phrases for the same action each time really worked out in my favor. I remember one student in particular who it wasn't known that he was a Gestalt language processor, but looking back, it's so obvious he was. And he really gained a lot from the let's play game pages. In almost every single one of these books, there's a let's play a game page. And it really carried over nicely for him into other aspects of his life, playing on the playgrounds, playing within the classroom, playing at gym. So that was really beautiful to see. I said its best use is to pair toys and sensory experiences with each page. You will find the items needed for each book on the last page. So I included on the last page all the outside materials that you would need to get in order to fulfill the activities within the book. Now, I'm an SLP, okay? I'm an educator. I know that we don't have a ton of money to spend on outside materials, and we very rarely get the compensation for those things that we buy on our own back. But I will say that almost everything I bought for these books was from the dollar store. I was not dealing with this huge budget at that time either. So everything is accessible. They're easy to find, easy toys, and you only have to buy them one time, and then you have them with this book for the rest of your use of using it. And I will also say that the books are seasonal or based on common life activities. So, for example, the first book I ever made was a summer book. We were coming back from summer break. It's based on summer activities. Then it goes into fall. Then it goes into Halloween. Then it goes into Thanksgiving. Then it goes into, going forward with winter and throughout the whole year. But there's also books called doctor's appointment and sleepover, things that are common in our lives that sometimes we need to read about and talk about so that person becomes more familiar with the act of what goes on at the doctor's office or what goes on at a sleepover. And it also can target that social component of language, and I hope make the student, the learner, feel more comfortable with that experience. Each book is also paired with one or more sequenced activities that correspond with the content of the story. These activities can be used during individual or group treatment. So yes, within the story itself, the downloadable document that you will get has a first, next, and last sequenced chart, I guess you could call it, graphic organizer, and the activities of the book are pictured there. So even if you're working one-on-one with a learner and at the very end you're asking them to sequence what you did that day, those visuals are there. And if you are working in a group, there are group activities tied to each book. So for example, there is a sports book, and the group activity that I chose for that sports book is a group bowling game. You don't even need to necessarily buy a little bowling kit, although I think that would be really nice. What I used at the time was 3 cups I got from the dollar store and a little foam ball that I got from the dollar store, and just took pictures of those things and the process of playing a game, which is you get your ball, you roll the ball, and you keep score. This turn-taking group activity is just one example of the many that I put in each book. And it's really nice. It really works on those social pragmatics. It works on that language of my turn, your turn, stuff like that. And also the math of it all. There was very simple math that we did when we were keeping score. Again, just one example from one book, but this is included in all of these books. The sequenced pictures, the actual graphic organizer to sequence, and all of these activity ideas that pair with the book. I go on to note the skills targeted. Skills that are targeted and modeled during these stories include, but are not limited to, core and fringe word acquisition, Gestalt language acquisition, prepositions, spatial concepts, inferencing, following directions, turn-taking, sequencing, and of course, literacy. So let's go through that. Core and fringe word acquisition. Wow, it's been a while since I've even heard that terminology. That was really big at the school when I was working there. Of course, I was working with a lot of students who used AAC systems, specifically speech-generating devices, and that word being core word versus fringe word was used a lot. Core word to describe the most common words that we use in our lives, usually very common actions like eat or clean, stuff like that. And a fringe word would be considered something that maybe you don't use a lot and it's kind of on the fringe of your vocabulary. An example of that could be paper towel, right? Not every student would learn paper towel before they would learn clean. So that is what that means. And that's very common practice to focus on core words with analytic language processors before working on fringe words. Of course, we know now that Gestalt language processing doesn't work like that and that most autistic people are Gestalt language processors. So made sure to include that it also targets Gestalt language because it targets these phrases that aren't necessarily bound to be that language learner's gestalts, but at least they are animated, fun language that is paired with an animated, fun activity that is easier for a Gestalt language learner to get in their brain, right? And actually stick. That language needs to be animated, it needs to be fun, and I think, not to toot my own toot, but I think the books really did a good job with that. Next was prepositions, spatial concepts. Yes, I mean, I think a lot of language teachers, educators, I won't just specifically say speech therapists because everyone teaches language in a person's young life and adult life even too, that the opportunity to use prepositions comes around all the time. In the trash can, on top of the fridge, there's many activities in these books that is about hiding things in the room. So then it becomes a ready or not, here you come, and looking for these different items that could be under the chair or in the cabinet. I had the luxury of working in a classroom that also had a little kitchenette. So a lot of times it'd be in the microwave or on top of the fridge. It's very easy, functional, real-life way to work on those prepositions. The next skill that it says it targets is inferencing. So I will say this isn't a skill that is explicitly written as an activity in the books. It kind of is something that you would have to improv in a way. If you wanted a student, a learner to target inferencing, to target looking ahead in the middle of the book, say, what do you think comes next? Or, what do you think they should do next? Something I forgot to mention, and I apologize, is that at the beginning of each book, there are 3 characters, which you can name any names you want, but I lovingly named Thomas, Trudy, and Tyler. And those 3 characters are to be dressed up in the beginning of every book. This is an awesome time to do inferencing. For example, if we were working on the spring book and I say, okay, who do you want to dress up? Let's say they pick Trudy. A lot of them picked Trudy. Trudy is really that girl. They picked Trudy and they put her in the middle of the page, and there's, a bunch of clothes there. Again, all provided within the books. It's a bunch of clothes to put on Trudy there. Which one would you wear in the spring? Are you gonna wear your shorts? Are you gonna wear boots? Are you gonna wear earmuffs? Stuff like that. So that isn't a type of inference. They would have to use their prior information to know, spring gets kind of warmer. I think I'd probably wear my shorts. So that's another perfect example of when to target inferencing that isn't explicitly in the books, but it is. Just be creative. The next thing is following directions. I do not enjoy creating formal goals with following directions, but of course it is a good assessment of whether that learner is receptively comprehending simple directions. Turn taking. Of course it targets turn taking. We just talked about how group activities is specifically about turn taking with your peers. Sequencing. We talked about sequencing and how all those visuals are there for you in the books. And of course, literacy. I love literacy. I think about my own language journey a lot when I think about creating things, and literacy was my favorite way to learn new words. There were many times when I would get in trouble for not doing my homework because I was reading, and I just wanted to read what I wanted to read. I didn't want to be told what to read. I wanted to read what I wanted to read, and in that way, in that intrinsic motivation, I gathered a nice vocabulary, I think. There's not many times that I get to use some of those bigger words that I learned because, I'm trying to keep things simple for viewers and for people that I'm educating, but yeah, it is part of the journey, and I really hope that the learners that I use these books with feel that way about the books. They feel excited to use them. That's just the hope with these. I think I want to preface that prep is required. Pages are to be printed and laminated, stimulus images are to be cut out and velcroed on the appropriate pages, and to please contact me if you have any questions about it. Assembly is required for sure. I think that a lot of speech therapists or educators are used to taking the time to cut out laminated things, velcro them together, what's so. But just wanted to preface that is absolutely necessary with these. It wouldn't really make sense to not do it. Going back to the second video I ever made, I had to watch it recently to formulate what I was going to say in this video. And oh my gosh, I got really emotional because going back to that time is just it feels so simple and so sweet. Even the way that I made the video about my Senses interactive book, it was so serene feeling. It had this nice serene music in the background. I wasn't talking at all. I was just simply showing what I was doing. And it felt really like a different time for me when I wasn't so worried about being on camera. I wasn't worried about how long the video was or whether anyone was gonna see it. Oh my gosh, I didn't give a hoot. I didn't give a hoot if I sold these things. I think at that time, I was just putting them for free. And if they weren't free, they're also on my website. And on my website, they're highly discounted. So I would recommend checking out on my website. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna even have Teachers Pay Teachers, but it's a good place to see reviews on the treatment materials themselves if you're wondering. But yeah, I literally just thought to myself, if I post this and maybe even one other speech therapist or educator sees it and sees how I go about teaching language, maybe it would help one other student learner. It kind of made me cry because it was just so pure. I knew where my heart was at then, and I still feel that way. I still 100% would never promote anything that I didn't know worked and that I didn't know people were interested in. But yeah, it was just such a pure time for me, and that's a little off topic. It's not about the science of the treatment. It's more just about me personally. I just wanted to share that. I go back and watch my old videos now and it's like, what a different world I was in, you know? Also at that time, I had such a large caseload. I was one of 2 SLPs in an entire public school, and autism support SLPs in an entire public school. And then I worked after the school day at a clinic, and my caseload was huge. And I just needed to feel as prepared as possible going into a treatment session. So having these materials and having it all year. Like, let's just go through the types of topics, the books, the activities that I have. So my first book I have here is the senses book. Can use any time of year, and everyone loves stimulating their senses. Amazing. Thanksgiving, we talked about. Spring, we talked about. Halloween, fall, summer, St. Patrick's Day, winter, sleepover, doctor's appointments, sports, garden, Valentine's Day. Those were all the themed books I had where I knew that for the whole year I was set. Oh, I also have summer. I don't know where summer was in that. Did I say summer? Maybe I did. I felt like I skipped over it. But yeah, so all year I was set, and this is just a recommendation of how you can organize them. I have each one in a bag with all the materials needed for that book. So it's so easy. I just grab everything and go. And if you are a busy SLP, you don't have to plan anything. Everything's already there. And you don't have to follow the book as if it's law, right? Like, you don't have to do it exactly how I would do it. You don't even have to go in order of the pages. Following the client-led treatment is so heavily supported by data. It promotes intrinsic motivation and promotes autonomy. If they pick a page in the book that they are so interested in, just go with it. If they want to stay on dressing up the characters the whole time, totally, we can do so much language with that. If they want to just do the sports activity or garden activity the whole time, period, love it for them. So just keeping that in mind for the busy SLPs out there, this stuff is available for you. So again, they're available on my website, www.support-the-spectrum.com, link in bio. And they're also available on Teachers Pay Teachers if that's just an easier platform for you. This series of long form content on my channel is based on the sequential order of when I first started making videos. So the first video that we made was on shouting out neurodivergent creators. Please check that out if you're looking for neurodivergent creators to follow and why. And this video was about my books that I made, but I made several videos about my books. This will be the only video where I'm talking about it. You know, when we get to video 46, that is also about the books or a different kind of book, let's say St. Patrick's Day book, we won't need to go over it again. This will be the video that is talking about them, just so everyone is aware. I think the last thing I want to say about them is that sometimes the books are giving social story in the sense that, for example, the doctor's appointment book starts off with asking how the individual person feels about the doctor. And then it also goes into, well, here are the steps of what's probably going to happen at the doctor. They're going to take your temperature using a thermometer. They're going to use a stethoscope to listen to your heart. They're going to use an otoscope to listen to your, or look at your ears. And they're going to measure how tall you are, and they might give you a shot. And I think this is a good prep for our neurodivergent friends who, you know, sometimes feel taken aback or taken off guard when put into situations like this. And it gives them the opportunity to do it on something else. I would have a stuffed bear, or I think I had a stuffed Minnie Mouse who you could give her the shot, give her the Band-Aid, listen to her heart, all of those things with the materials from the books. Or like the social story of the Thanksgiving book is, you're gonna set the table, you're gonna eat, some people are gonna watch football. Setting up that expectation for our neurodivergent friends, which is sometimes half the battle. I always tell caregivers, if you inform that neurodivergent person of everything that's going to happen before it happens, that already does half the legwork of regulating them if they know what to expect. So yeah, I think that's it for today's episode. Shameless plug here, you guys, for the treatment materials that I've made, but the reason that I feel totally cool with it and that it really is shameless is because I know these things work. They are created with speech therapists in mind. They're created with neurodivergent people in mind. They're created with speech therapists in mind. They're created with educators in mind. So take advantage of them. They're there for you. And if you do, make sure to leave a review. If you have any questions for it, please contact me. Link in my bio to contact me in any kind of way. Also on my website, there's a way to contact me as well. And thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for all the supports. Bye.